2, 1.
Action.
Happy Oscar week. We're here again, right here at the Brown Table. Today we're going to discuss Darkest Hour. Here's a brief synopsis, not my words. I'm no one's expert. This is just what the people had said. A thrilling and inspiring true story begins at the precipice of World War II, as within days of becoming Prime Minister of Great Britain, Winston Churchill, Academy Award nominee Gary Oldman, must face one of the most turbulent and defining trials, exploring a negotiated peace treaty with Nazi Germany, or standing firm to fight for the ideals, liberty, and freedom of a nation, as the unstoppable Nazi forces roll across Western Europe and the threat of invasion of imminent, and with an unprepared public, a skeptical king, and his own party plotting against him. Churchill must withstand his darkest hour, rally a nation, and attempt to change the course of world history. Ladies, I have to reveal the darkest hour, surprisingly, 4 brownie points. I dreaded the thought of World War II, Winston Churchill. I don't want to see anything about Winston Churchill. But I related to every part of the movie until the last 30 minutes. The last 30 minutes killed me. That speech killed me. I felt like the people waving the white things in the chamber was like me on a Sunday morning in church. Preach, pastor, preach! That's all I got to say. But I gave it 4. It was surprisingly entertaining. And he should win Best Actor.
Yes, so I gave it 3 brownie points.
Okay.
This movie was important. It told a great story, obviously, and right now I'm in the midst of watching The Queen. And then obviously we'll talk about Dunkirk and all of it, and then along with Darkest Hour, they all kind of cover this situation. So I was a little bit over it by the time I watched The Darkest Hour, which was the last of the 3 that I saw. However, Oldman's performance just handed the man an Oscar.
What?
Yes, he was fantastic.
Not only was he fantastic, he was in every scene, like, which speaks volumes to his performance and being able to be that dedicated to his role. So he did a fantastic job. The story was well told, but it just got to be a little bit long in the tooth afterwards.
Yeah.
Well, I gave it 4. I'm so happy that I saw Dunkirk first because it gave me a basis of to understand what was happening. But what I was so impressed with was learning more about the man. Because when you hear about Churchill, it's like, But to see the idiosyncrasies, ordinary people doing extraordinary things. But what's behind the scenes? How does he function on a day-to-day basis and deal with the resilience of what's going on? And then it also shows you what was happening in terms of England at the time, and America, and really the concealed stories about the World War II. So I really enjoyed that, and I am with you. He needs the Oscar for leading actor.
Yeah. He did. Just let him present it to himself.
Well, I also gave it 4 stars.
Get out of here.
And I am not a history buff. I'm not into war flicks. I mean, it was actually kind of painful to just because of the mental block that I have about war movies. But like you, I'm also glad that I saw Dunkirk first.
Yeah.
And it was also nice to see the weave of Dunkirk, The Post, and The Darkest Hour, because they all interrelated. You had the lying. And then you had the direct storylines of Dunkirk and
the leaders
and The Darkest Hour. But the thing that I do believe that Oldman deserves the Oscar. But what I really enjoyed was
4 minutes. It's 4 minutes.
Oh, sorry. What I really enjoyed was the fact that he made the character human.
Yes.
And that's what I really
likable.
Yes.
Well, I'm sticking with my 5 stars. I love Winston Churchill. Therefore, so it was already getting 5 stars. I had no idea what the movie was about, though. So I'm glad, and it was at the bottom of my list. So I'm glad I went to see it, and I really enjoyed it. And yes, I feel he should get the Oscar as well, because he transferred.
I bet you can see who you're going to pick for Best Picture. You got hard too.
I gave it 4. I did. I gave it 4 because I love a good tale of history on another side.
Yeah.
Not about slavery and what we were doing.
Yeah.
But to see what they went to in an empire and how they had to vote him in and how most of the people didn't even like him and what he had to go through to like help run this country. And oh my gosh, I just loved it. The scene where he got on the subway and there was like a black guy and I was like, Wakanda!
Yeah!
That's like, it didn't treat you like you just got out of
And
a
that's
boat.
very controversial. They're saying there were no black people in London
Right.
after the war. And how the hell we get Shirley Bassey?
Exactly.
How do you have so many blacks, or not so many, but they were
They
were
existed,
there.
yes.
So the whole thing about Winston Churchill not being in a position to call the shots they were plotting against him, I just couldn't help but think about today's political scene. And I had a lot of faith in him because I knew his father was a sailor and he had experience in another war, and he just seemed to be wise, and he was a drunk. But
And I'm glad you said why, because a lot of the films had great quotes, and the one that I'm going to quote from The Darkest Hour is when he said, "When youth departs, may wisdom prove enough."
And
Yes,
it's a
I
round
mean,
table, we're breaking down, baby, like it's never been broke before.
Hey!